Lenora Bennett pushed open the barn door, expecting to find a raccoon in the feed bin, and found a bleeding man instead. The lantern swung in her grip, throwing wild shadows across his face, and her heart stopped cold. Wade Carver, the man who left her standing in a borrowed wedding dress 5 years ago, was slumped against her hay bales with blood soaking through his coat and the same blue-gray eyes that haunted her sleep. He looked up at her, recognition hitting him like a second bullet, and said her name the way he used to say it, low and careful, like a prayer he had no right to speak. She should have turned around, should have let him bleed out in the dark. But her hands were already moving, setting down the lantern, crossing the barn floor, pulling his coat open to find the wound. Because whatever else Wade Carver was, he was dying, and Lenora Bennett had sworn an oath. The bullet had gone through clean, but he had lost too much blood. She worked fast, hands steady even as her pulse hammered, packing the wound with clean cloth from her medical bag, pressing hard while he hissed through his teeth. "What are you doing here?" she said, voice flat as prairie stone. He tried to smile and failed. Came back to Bitter Mesa on business. Ran into trouble on the road. She tied off the bandage tight enough to make him wince. You always did have a gift for understatement. His hand caught her wrist, weak but insistent. "Lenora, I know you have no reason to help me." She pulled free and stood, wiping blood on her apron. "You are right about that. But I am a doctor, and you are bleeding in my barn. So shut up and let me work." She brought water and whiskey, made him drink both, then checked the wound again. The bleeding had slowed, but infection was the real danger now. She would have to watch him through the night. The thought made her stomach twist. This barn was part of Bluebird Ranch, the land her father had died trying to keep, the land her brother was slowly losing to debt and bad decisions. The last thing she needed was Wade Carver back in her life, with whatever trouble followed him. But she could not move him yet. So she settled on a hay bale across from him, lantern between them, and waited for him to explain. He watched her in the flickering light, his face older and harder than she remembered, lines carved deep by sun and wind. "I did not come here to find you," he said finally. "That much I believe," she said. He told her he had been hired to bring a cattle drive up from Texas, that he had made trail boss 2 years back and worked his way into enough money to matter, that he had business in Bitter Mesa involving land rights and a man named Garrett Chase. Lenora went very still. Garrett Chase owned half the valley now, bought up failing ranches for fractions of their worth, squeezed out families who had been here for generations. Her brother Samuel owed Chase money, more than the ranch could cover. If Chase wanted Bluebird, he would find a way to take it. And now Wade was tangled up with him. She felt the trap closing. "What kind of business?" she said. Wade looked away. "The kind that pays well. The kind I cannot walk away from." She stood, anger flashing hot. "Then you can bleed somewhere else." His voice stopped her at the door. "He has a deed, Lenora. A deed that says part of Bluebird was never legally yours." The world tilted. She turned back, lantern light making harsh shadows of her face. "What are you talking about?" Wade leaned forward, pain tightening his jaw. 20 years ago, your father bought this land from a man named Roscoe Pike. Chase has a document that says Pike never had clear title, that the eastern section, the water rights, all of it reverts to the original claim holder. And Chase bought that claim. She felt the floor drop out. "That is a lie." "Maybe," Wade said. But it is a lie with a judge's signature and a date that predates your father's purchase. Samuel knows. He has been scrambling to find a way out for months. That is why he is in debt to Chase. He borrowed to hire a lawyer, and the lawyer could not break the case. Now Chase owns the note and the land both. Unless someone stops him. Lenora sat back down hard. Why are you telling me this? Wade held her gaze. Because I made a deal with Chase, and now I know what he is. Because when I took his money, I did not know this was your ranch. And because you deserve a chance to fight. She laughed, bitter and sharp. How generous. What does Chase want from you? Wade grimaced. He hired me to survey the land, mark the boundaries, report back on water access and herd capacity. He wants to know what Bluebird is worth before he takes it. And he wants someone the town does not know. Someone who can move around without raising questions. I was supposed to ride in quiet, do the job, ride out. Then someone put a bullet in me, 10 miles outside town. Who? Lenora said. Wade shook his head. Did not see them. Could have been road bandits. Could have been someone who knew what I was doing here. She studied him, trying to read past the pain and exhaustion. If you are working for Chase, why tell me any of this? Why not just finish the job and take his money? He met her eyes and something cracked open in his expression. Because I already destroyed you once. I am not doing it again. The barn went silent except for the wind and the creaking wood. The air between them felt charged, heavy with old wounds and new danger. She wanted to rage at him, throw him out, let whatever was coming come. But she could not. Not with Samuel's desperation making sense now. Not with the ranch hanging by a thread. Not with Wade looking at her like she was still the woman he had failed 5 years ago. What do you want from me? She said quietly. Wade leaned back, exhausted. Let me stay until I can ride. I will tell you everything I know about Chase's plan, and I will figure out who shot me and why. Because if someone wants me dead before I finish this job, that means there is more going on than a simple land grab. She should have said no. Should have thrown him out and dealt with Chase on her own. But Samuel had been hiding this from her for months, and Wade was the only person who had told her the truth, even if that truth came wrapped in betrayal. Fine, she said. But you stay in this barn. No one can know you are here. If Samuel finds out, he will panic. If Chase finds out, you are dead, and so is any chance we have. Wade nodded. Agreed. She stood, gathering her medical kit. I will be back before dawn to check the wound. If you start bleeding again, yell. If you try to leave, I will shoot you myself. She walked out into the cold night air and stood in the empty yard, trying to steady herself. The ranch house was dark, Samuel asleep or drunk, probably both. Her brother had been falling apart since their father died, making bad choices and worse bets, too proud to ask for help and too angry to accept it. Now she understood why. He had been trying to save Bluebird alone, drowning in debt and desperation, and she had been too busy keeping the town healthy to see it. The guilt was sharp. But underneath it was something else. Wade Carver was back. The man who had kissed her in the church door and then vanished without a word, leaving her to face the town's pity and her father's fury. She had built her life around never needing anyone again, around being the woman who did not break. And now, he was bleeding in her barn, offering her a chance to fight, looking at her like he still remembered what they were. She went inside and did not sleep. When dawn broke gray and cold, she walked back to the barn with fresh bandages and hot coffee. Wade was awake, pale but steady, the wound clean when she checked it. He drank the coffee in silence while she worked. Then she sat down and made him tell her everything. Chase's timeline, his contacts in town, the survey routes Wade was supposed to ride, the men he had hired to back his claim. Wade talked for an hour, his voice low and factual, and Lenora made notes in the small journal she carried. When he finished, she looked up. If Chase has a legal deed, we need to prove it is a forgery. Wade nodded. Or prove Pike did have clear title when he sold to your father. Which means going back 20 years and finding records that may not exist. Lenora stood, pacing the barn. My father kept everything. Bills of sale, correspondence, land office receipts. If there is proof, it is in the house. But Samuel will not let me near the office. He has been locking himself in there for weeks, going through papers, burning half of them. Wade's expression darkened. Burning them. She nodded. I think he is trying to erase anything that makes us look weak, anything Chase could use. But he might be destroying the very thing we need. Wade pushed himself up, wincing. Then we have to get in there before he burns it all. She turned on him. You can barely stand. You are not going anywhere. He met her eyes, stubborn. You need help, Lenora, and whether you like it or not, I owe you. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to do this alone, the way she did everything. But the truth was, she could not search the office without Samuel knowing. And Samuel was too far gone to trust. Fine, she said. But we do it my way. Tonight, after Samuel passes out. You stay quiet, and you do exactly what I say. Wade nodded. You are the boss. The phrase hit her strange, almost funny, and she saw the flicker of a smile on his face before he caught it. That was the thing about Wade. Even bleeding and half dead, even after 5 years and a world of betrayal, he still made her want to smile back. She hated that. Hated how easy it was to remember the man he had been before he left. But she buried it and walked out, leaving him in the barn with instructions to rest and stay hidden. She had patience to see, a town to keep healthy, and a brother to manage. The fact that her entire world was collapsing could wait until nightfall. The town was buzzing. Lenora made her rounds, checking on old Mrs. Holleran's cough and the Miller boy's broken arm. And everywhere she went, people were talking about Garrett Chase. He had been in the saloon last night, buying drinks, making promises. He was going to bring the railroad through. He was going to build a new mill. He was going to make Bitter Mesa a real town instead of a dusty stopover. People wanted to believe him. They were tired of scraping by, tired of drought and debt and watching their children leave for California. Chase offered them a future, and they did not look too hard at what it cost. Lenora smiled and nodded and kept her mouth shut. But inside she was calculating. If Chase had the town on his side, fighting him in court would be impossible. She needed proof so clear, no one could ignore it. At noon, she stopped by the general store for supplies and found her brother's wife there, loading a wagon. Clara was pale and tight-lipped, her hands shaking as she stacked flour sacks. Lenora touched her arm. Are you all right? Clara glanced around, then leaned in close. Samuel is getting worse. He has been drinking since dawn, tearing through the office, shouting about thieves and liars. I am afraid, Lenora. Afraid he will do something stupid. Lenora felt the dread settle deeper. I will talk to him. Clara shook her head. He will not listen. He never does. Just, if you can, keep him away from town tonight. Chase is hosting a meeting at the saloon. He is going to make an announcement about the land purchases. If Samuel goes, there will be trouble. Lenora promised to try, knowing it was useless. Samuel did what he wanted, and lately what he wanted was to drink himself numb and rage at ghosts. She went home as the sun slanted low, found Samuel on the porch with a bottle, and sat down beside him. He looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Come to lecture me." "No," she said. "Came to sit with my brother." He snorted. "Your brother is a failure. Lost everything Pa built. Going to lose the house too, probably. You can watch me drink myself to death and call it family time." She let the silence stretch, then said quietly, "I know about Chase. About the deed." Samuel went rigid. "Clara told you." Lenora shook her head. "Does it matter?" Samuel took a long drink. "No. Nothing matters. He has us beat. We are done." She wanted to tell him about Wade, about the plan, about the chance they still had, but she could not risk it. Not with Samuel this drunk and this angry. So she stayed until he passed out in his chair, then covered him with a blanket and went inside. She met Wade at the barn after midnight and led him to the house. Samuel was snoring in his room, dead to the world. The office was a wreck. Papers everywhere, half the files pulled out and stacked in chaotic piles. Lenora lit a single lamp and closed the door. "Start with the land office receipts," she whispered. "Anything dated 1853 or earlier." They worked in silence, moving fast. Wade checking the desk while Lenora went through the file cabinet. Her father had been meticulous. Every transaction recorded, every receipt saved. But the deeper they dug, the more she saw the gaps. Whole years missing, documents burned or torn. Samuel had been destroying records, and she could not tell if he was hiding something or just trying to erase his failure. Wade pulled a ledger from the bottom drawer and flipped it open. "Lenora, look at this." She crossed to him. The ledger was old, the pages brown and brittle, the handwriting her father's. It listed every land transaction from the year he bought Bluebird. And there, on the third page, was the entry for Roscoe Pike. 300 acres, water rights included, purchased for $600. Below it was a note in her father's careful script. Title verified by county clerk. Original claim filed 1848. No liens, no disputes. Wade looked up at her. If the clerk verified the title, there should be a record at the county office. Lenora felt hope flare. "We need to get to town. The clerk's office opens at 8. Wade nodded. "But we have another problem. Someone shot me to stop me from finishing Chase's survey. If we go to town together, we are going to draw attention. And if Chase finds out you are digging into the title, he will move faster." She thought fast. "I go alone. You stay here, out of sight. If I find the record, I bring it back and we figure out how to use it." Wade frowned. "If you go alone and Chase has people watching the clerk's office, you are walking into a trap." She met his eyes. "Then I will be careful." He reached out, almost touched her arm, then stopped. The air between them crackled. "Lenora, I know you do not trust me. I know I do not deserve it. But let me do this. Let me be the one who takes the risk this time. She wanted to let someone else carry the weight. But 5 years ago he had promised to stand beside her, and then vanished. And she had learned the hard way that the only person she could count on was herself. I appreciate the offer, she said quietly. But this is my fight. He looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded. Then I will be here when you get back. They searched for another hour, but found nothing else useful. When they slipped back to the barn, the sky was starting to gray. Lenora checked Wade's wound, changed the bandage, and left him with water and bread. Then she walked back to the house, bone-tired and wired with nerves, and lay down for 2 hours of restless sleep. When she woke, Samuel was already gone, the house empty, and she dressed quickly and saddled her horse. The ride into town took 40 minutes, the morning cool and bright. The valley spread out around her in shades of gold and green. This land was hers, had been her father's before her, and before that had been wild country carved into something real by people who believed in it. She was not going to let Garrett Chase take it. The county clerk's office was a narrow wooden building, wedged between the saloon and the feed store. Lenora tied her horse and walked up the steps, aware of eyes on her. A man in a dark suit stood by the hitching post, watching. She did not recognize him, but she knew the type. Chase's man. She pushed through the door anyway. The clerk was a dusty little man named Horace Finch, who had worked in this office for 30 years. He looked up from his desk with watery eyes. Dr. Bennett. What can I do for you? She kept her voice light. I need to look at land title records from 1853, my father's purchase of the Bluebird property. Finch hesitated. That is a long time back. May I ask why? Research, she said. Family history. He did not look convinced, but he nodded and shuffled to the back room. Lenora waited, pulse hammering. Through the window, she could see the man in the dark suit still watching. Finch came back with a ledger and set it on the counter. 1853. You will find your father's name in the spring entries. She opened the book, found the page, and there it was. Joseph Bennett, purchase from Roscoe Pike. Verified by clerk on duty, no disputes. She ran her finger down the column, looking for Pike's original claim. It was listed 3 pages earlier. Roscoe Pike, claim filed 1848, 200 acres, expanded to 300 in 1851, water rights granted 1852. All signed by the Territorial Land Office. Lenora felt her heart race. This was it. Proof that Pike had clear title when he sold to her father. She looked up at Finch. Can I get a copy of this? He frowned. Copies take time, and there is a fee. She pulled out coins. I will pay. I need it today. Finch looked uncomfortable. Dr. Bennett, I have to ask, does this have something to do with Garrett Chase? She met his eyes. Yes. His expression tightened. Then I cannot help you. She felt the ground shift. What? Finch glanced at the door, lowered his voice. Chase was here 2 days ago. Said anyone asking about the Bluebird title was not to be given access. Said it was a legal matter, and interfering could cause trouble. She leaned forward. Horace, my family has been in this valley for 20 years. Chase has been here for 2. You know what is right. He looked miserable. I know. But I have a wife, and Chase owns the mortgage on my house. I am sorry, Dr. Bennett. I truly am. But I cannot help you. She stared at him, fury and desperation warring. Then, she straightened. I understand. She turned and walked out. The ledger entry burned into her memory, but no proof in her hands. The man in the dark suit was gone. She untied her horse and rode slowly down the main street, mind racing. Chase had blocked the clerk's office, which meant he knew someone might come looking, which meant he was scared. And that gave her leverage. She just had to figure out how to use it. At the edge of town, she saw a crowd gathered outside the saloon. She dismounted and pushed through. Inside, Garrett Chase stood at the bar, flanked by 2 hired men holding court. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a sharp face and colder eyes, dressed in a fine coat that made him look like money. He saw Lenora and smiled. Dr. Bennett, come to join the celebration. She kept her voice even. What? Celebration. Chase gestured grandly. I am pleased to announce that as of this morning, I have acquired full legal title to the eastern section of Bluebird Ranch. Water rights included. Anyone interested in purchasing shares in the new cattle operation can see me after this meeting. The room erupted in murmurs. Lenora felt the world tilt. He had moved faster than she expected. She pushed forward. That land is not yours to sell. Chase's smile did not waver. I have a deed that says otherwise, signed by a judge and filed with the county. Your family's claim was invalid from the start. I am simply correcting a 20-year-old mistake. She wanted to scream, wanted to hit him, but she kept her face calm. I would like to see that deed. Chase shrugged. It is a matter of public record. You are welcome to request a copy from the court. Of course, the court is closed until Monday, so you will have to wait. The crowd laughed. Lenora felt the trap close. Chase had planned this perfectly. Announcement on a Saturday, court closed, town on his side. By Monday, it would be too late. She turned and walked out, the laughter following her into the street. She rode hard back to the ranch, anger giving way to cold calculation. Chase thought he had won. But he had made a mistake. He had announced too early, given her time to react. If she could prove the deed was a forgery before Monday, she could file an emergency injunction. But that meant finding proof today, and the only place to get it was from Chase himself. She found Wade in the barn, pacing despite his injury. He turned when she came in. What happened? She told him. Everything. The clerk's refusal, Chase's announcement, the deadline. Wade's face went hard. He is moving because he knows someone is onto him. Someone shot me to stop the survey, and now he is rushing the land grab. That means he is vulnerable. We just have to hit him before he can cover his tracks. Lenora sank onto a hay bale. How? We have no proof, no access to records, no way to stop him. Wade crouched in front of her, his face level with hers. Yes, we do. I know where Chase keeps his documents. She looked up sharply. What? Wade grimaced. When he hired me, he showed me the deed. Wanted to make sure I understood the survey was legitimate. He keeps it in a safe in his office above the saloon. If we can get in there, we can see exactly what he has. And if it is a forgery, We can prove it. Lenora felt hope flare. That is breaking and entering. Wade's smile was grim. Yes, it is. She held his gaze. If we get caught, we lose everything. He nodded. If we do nothing, you lose everything anyway. She thought about her father, about Samuel, about the people in town who still believed Chase was their salvation. Then she thought about Wade, bleeding in her barn, offering her a chance when he could have just walked away. All right, she said. We do it tonight. They planned through the afternoon. Chase's office had a back entrance, a narrow staircase that led up from the alley. Wade had seen it when he met with Chase the first time. The safe was in the corner, a big iron box that would take time to crack. But Wade had worked cattle drives long enough to know his way around locks, and Lenora had steady hands and a surgeon's patience. Between them, they might manage it. The risk was enormous. If they were caught, Chase would have them arrested. If they got the deed, and it was not a forgery, they gained nothing. But if it was a forgery, if they could prove it, they could blow Chase's entire scheme apart. It was a desperate play. But Lenora was done playing it safe. She had spent 5 years building walls around herself, and those walls had not saved her from anything. Maybe it was time to tear them down. They waited until full dark. Samuel had ridden into town hours ago, probably to drink himself blind at Chase's celebration, and Clara had taken the children to her sister's place. The ranch was empty. Lenora changed into dark pants and a plain shirt, braided her hair tight, and met Wade at the barn. He had a revolver tucked in his belt and a set of lockpicks in his pocket. She carried a small bag with a notebook, pencil, and a knife. They rode double on her horse, keeping to the shadows, and reached town just after 10. The saloon was still loud, light spilling into the street, voices raised in drunken celebration. They tied the horse 2 blocks away and approached from the alley. The back staircase was narrow and creaked under their weight. Wade tested the door at the top. Locked. He pulled out the picks and went to work. Lenora kept watch, heart hammering, every sound magnified. Below them, someone laughed. A bottle smashed. The night felt huge and hostile. The lock clicked. Wade pushed the door open, and they slipped inside. Chase's office was small and cluttered. Papers stacked on a desk, maps pinned to the walls, the safe squatting in the corner like an iron toad. Wade crossed to it, ran his hands over the lock, then glanced back at her. This is going to take time. She nodded. I will watch the door. He knelt and started working. Lenora stood by the window, watching the street below, every muscle tense. Minutes crawled by. Below, the saloon noise started to fade. People were leaving. If Chase came upstairs now, they were finished. She glanced back at Wade. He was sweating, his jaw tight with concentration, fingers moving delicate and sure over the lock. The sight of him, focused and steady, doing this for her, made something ache deep in her chest. She had spent so long being angry at him, but right now, in this moment, she was just grateful he was here. The safe clicked open. Wade pulled the door wide and Lenora crossed to him, kneeling beside him to look inside. There were stacks of papers, deeds, contracts, letters. Wade pulled out a thick document, unfolded it, and held it up to the lamplight. This is it. The Bluebird deed. She leaned in, scanning the text. It looked official. Territorial seal, judge's signature, dated 1853. But something was wrong. The ink was too dark, too fresh. And the paper, though yellowed, did not have the brittle feel of 20-year-old parchment. She touched the edge. "Wade, look at this." He ran his finger along the seal. "It is a fake. A good one, but a fake. The seal is pressed too deep. Real seals from that era were lighter. And this signature," he pointed to the judge's name, "this judge did not serve until 1856. Lenora felt triumph surge. "We have him." Then the door opened. Garrett Chase stood in the doorway, a revolver in his hand, and 2 of his men behind him. "Well, well," he said, voice smooth and cold. "Dr. Bennett. And the trail boss who was supposed to be dead. Funny how things work out." Lenora stood slowly, the forged deed still in her hand. Wade rose beside her, his hand drifting toward his gun. Chase smiled. "I would not do that. My men are faster, and you are outnumbered." Wade froze. Chase stepped into the room, eyes on the open safe. "I assume you found what you were looking for. Pity it will not do you any good." Lenora lifted the deed. "This is a forgery. Everyone will know it once we show them." Chase laughed. "Show who?" "The judge who signed it." "Oh, wait, he is dead." "The clerk who verified it." "Also dead." "The lawyer who filed it." "Retired to San Francisco and unreachable." "You have no proof, Dr. Bennett. Just a piece of paper. And a story no one will believe." Lenora felt rage flare. "The town will believe me." Chase's smile turned vicious. "The town loves me. I am bringing them prosperity. You are just a woman trying to hold on to land she cannot manage. Even your own brother thinks you should sell." She went cold. "What did you say?" Chase shrugged. "Samuel and I had a long talk tonight. He is tired of fighting, tired of debt, tired of watching you play doctor while the ranch falls apart. He is ready to take my offer. Sign over Bluebird, walk away with enough cash to start over somewhere else. I expect his signature on my desk by Monday morning." Lenora felt the world crack. Samuel was going to betray her, going to sell the land their father died protecting, and Chase had orchestrated all of it. She looked at Wade, saw the fury in his eyes, and made a choice. She threw the deed at Chase's feet. "Keep it, it does not matter. We know the truth." Chase kicked the deed aside. "The truth is what I say it is. Now, you are going to walk out of here. Go home and keep your mouth shut. If you do not, I will have you arrested for breaking and entering. And your brother will sign over the ranch to cover his debts. Either way, I win." Wade stepped forward. "You are not going to get away with this." Chase leveled the gun at him. "I already have. The only question is whether you two walk out of here or get carried out." Lenora grabbed Wade's arm, stopping him. "We are leaving." Chase smiled. Smart woman. They walked to the door, Chase's men parting to let them through. At the threshold, Lenora turned back. "This is not over." Chase's eyes were dead. "Yes, it is." They went down the stairs in silence, rage and despair mixing in equal measure. When they reached the alley, Wade turned to her. "We have to stop Samuel. If he signs that contract, it is done." They rode back to the ranch at a gallop, the night cold and sharp. Lenora's mind was racing. Samuel was going to sign. He was going to give up everything, because he was too broken to see another way. And she had no idea how to stop him. When they reached the house, the lights were on. They burst through the door and found Samuel at the kitchen table, a bottle in front of him, a stack of papers beside it. He looked up, eyes red and unfocused. "Lenora, where have you been?" She crossed to him, grabbed the papers. "What are these?" He shrugged. "Chase's offer. I am signing in the morning." She slammed them down. "No, you are not." Samuel stood, swaying. "You do not get to decide. This is my ranch now. Pa left it to me, and I am selling it to save what is left of our family." She felt tears sting her eyes. "You are killing what is left of our family." Samuel's face crumpled. "I am trying to save us, Lenora. I am drowning, and you just keep pretending everything is fine." "Well, it is not fine. We are broke. We are finished. And I am done fighting." Wade stepped forward. "The deed is a forgery. We saw it tonight. Chase is lying to you." Samuel barely glanced at him. "Who the hell are you?" "Wade Carver," Wade said quietly. "I was supposed to survey this land for Chase. Instead, I am telling you he is a fraud and a thief. And if you sign that contract, you are handing him a fortune he does not deserve." Samuel laughed bitterly. "Of course. The man who left my sister at the altar is here to give me advice. That is perfect." He turned to Lenora. "Is that why you have been sneaking around? You are with him again, after what he did to you." She felt the accusation like a slap. "This is not about Wade. This is about saving Bluebird." Samuel shook his head. "Bluebird is already gone. I am just making it official." He reached for the papers. Lenora snatched them away. "I am not letting you do this." Samuel's face went dark. "You do not have a choice." He lunged for the papers, and she stepped back, holding them high. Wade moved between them. "Stop. Both of you." Samuel shoved him. "Get out of my house." Wade held his ground. "Not until you listen. The deed Chase showed you is fake. The judge who signed it was not even in office when the date says he was. The seal is wrong. The paper is wrong. We can prove it. All we need is time." Samuel stared at him, then at Lenora. "You are lying." Wade pulled out his own notes, the ones he had made in Chase's office. "Look at this. The signature. The seal. Compare it to any real document from that time. It does not match." Samuel took the notes, hands shaking, and stared at them for a long moment. Then he crumpled them. "Even if you are right, it does not matter. I owe Chase money. He owns the note. If I do not pay, he takes the ranch anyway." Lenora felt the trap close tighter. "How much?" Samuel would not meet her eyes. $1,200. Due Monday. She stared at him. $1,200. "Samuel, how did you let it get that bad?" He exploded. "Because I have been trying to save this place alone while you play doctor in town. Because every year gets harder, and Pa's plans do not work anymore. Because I am not him, and I never will be." The pain in his voice cut through her anger. She reached out, touched his arm. "Samuel, you should have told me." He pulled away. "Why?" "So you could fix it. So you could be the strong one again, while I am just the failure." "I am done, Lenora. I am signing the papers, and we are leaving. Anything left, we split." That is the best I can do." He grabbed the bottle and walked out, leaving them standing in the wreckage of his pride. Lenora stood frozen. $1,200. It might as well be 12,000. She did not have that kind of money. No one in town did. Wade touched her shoulder gently. "Lenora." She turned to him, the weight of everything crashing down. "We lost. Chase wins. Samuel signs Monday, and it is over." Wade shook his head. "Not yet." She laughed bitter. "What are we supposed to do? Rob a bank?" He met her eyes. "We prove the deed is a forgery and file an injunction before Samuel signs. If we can show a judge the fraud, the contract is void and Chase's claim falls apart." She wanted to believe him, but it was Saturday night. The court was closed until Monday morning. And even if they filed, Chase had the town, the money, and the connections. A frontier doctor and a trail boss were not going to beat him in court. Unless... She stopped. "Unless we do not go to a judge." Wade frowned. "What do you mean?" She grabbed the papers off the table, the ones Samuel had been about to sign. "We do not need a judge. We need witnesses. People who know the land, who remember Roscoe Pike, who can testify that the deed is wrong. If we can gather enough of them, make enough noise, Chase will have to back down or risk exposure." Wade's eyes lit up. A town meeting. Force it into the open before Samuel signs. She nodded. "Tomorrow. Sunday. Everyone will be at church. We stand up. We show them the forgery. We make them see what Chase is doing. It is not legal proof, but it is public pressure. And if we are loud enough, Chase will not be able to move without everyone watching." Wade smiled, fierce and proud. That might actually work. She felt hope flare again. Fragile, but real. "Then, we have until morning to find people who will back us. And we have to do it without Chase knowing." They worked through the night. Wade rode out to the neighboring ranches, the ones that had held onto their land, the ones that knew what Chase was. Lenora went to the old-timers in town, the people who had been here since the beginning, who remembered Joseph Bennett buying Bluebird, who had done business with Roscoe Pike. She woke them up, one by one, told them what was happening, and asked them to come to church. Some slammed the door. Some were too scared of Chase to help. But enough said yes. Enough remembered. By dawn, she had a dozen people willing to stand up. She met Wade at the edge of town as the sun broke over the hills. He looked exhausted, his wound clearly paining him, but his eyes were steady. "I have 8 ranchers. All of them have dealt with Chase. All of them are ready to talk." She nodded. "I have 12 town witnesses. It is not enough to win in court, but it is enough to start a fight." They walked into the church together, just as the service was starting. The room went silent. Every eye turned to them. Lenora saw Clara in the 3rd row, saw Samuel slumped beside her, saw Chase sitting in the back with his men. She walked to the front, Wade beside her, and turned to face the congregation. "I know this is not the time or place," she said, voice carrying clear and strong, "but there is something you need to hear." The pastor started to object. Chase stood, smiling. "Dr. Bennett, if you have something to say, you can say it to me in private." She ignored him. "Garrett Chase has been telling you he has legal title to my family's land. That is a lie." The room erupted in murmurs. Chase's smile tightened. "That is slander. She held up the notes Wade had made. The deed he showed the court is a forgery. The judge who signed it was not in office. The seal is wrong, and we have witnesses who can prove it. One by one, the witnesses stood. Old man Harlan, who had been county clerk before Finch, testified that the seal on Chase's deed did not match any territorial seal he had ever seen. Mrs. Oates, who had been a girl when Pike sold the land, remembered her father doing business with him and said Pike's title was solid. The ranchers Wade had gathered spoke about Chase's tactics, the threats, the bought judges, the pattern of fraud stretching across 3 counties. The evidence was circumstantial. It would not hold up in a real court. But in the court of public opinion, in front of the whole town, it was devastating. People started shouting questions at Chase. He tried to wave them off, but the noise was building, anger replacing trust. Lenora pressed forward. Garrett Chase is a con man. He is using a fake deed to steal land, and he is betting you will not look too closely, because he is promising you money. But once he owns the valley, you will all be working for him, and he will take everything you have, just like he is taking Bluebird. Chase's face went red. This is absurd. I have filed legal documents. I have a judge's approval. You are all listening to a desperate woman who cannot accept that her family lost. Samuel stood, swaying. Chase turned to him, voice smooth again. Samuel, tell them you are ready to sign. Samuel looked at Lenora, then at the crowd, then at the papers in Chase's hand. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he shook his head. No, I am not signing. Chase went very still. What? Samuel's voice was raw but steady. My sister is right. You are a liar, and I would rather lose the ranch fighting than give it to you. The room erupted. Chase tried to speak, but the crowd drowned him out. People were standing, shouting, demanding answers. The pastor was calling for order. And in the chaos, Chase turned and walked out, his men following. Lenora watched him go, knowing this was not over, but feeling, for the first time in days, like they had a chance. The town meeting spilled out into the street. People clustered in angry knots, debating, arguing, demanding the sheriff investigate. Lenora stood on the church steps with Wade, exhausted and shaking with adrenaline. Samuel came up to her, eyes red but clear. I am sorry. I should have trusted you. She hugged him, hard. We are going to fix this. Together. He nodded. What do we do now? Wade spoke up. We file the injunction first thing Monday. We make sure the judge knows the town is watching. And we find a way to pay off Samuel's debt so Chase cannot use it as leverage. Lenora turned to him. How? We do not have $1,200. Wade was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I do. She stared at him. What? He met her eyes. The money Chase paid me for the survey. I have not spent it. It is yours if you need it. She could not breathe. You would give us that money. After everything. He smiled, sad and honest. I owe you 5 years, Lenora. This does not even start to cover it. But it is something. She wanted to refuse, wanted to keep the walls up, keep herself safe. But standing there, with the town rallying behind her and Wade offering her everything he had, She realized she did not want to be safe anymore. She wanted to fight. And she wanted to fight beside him. "All right," she said quietly. "We will take it. But only as a loan. When we save the ranch, I pay you back." Wade shook his head. "When we save the ranch, you owe me nothing." She held his gaze. "When we save the ranch," she said, voice steady, "maybe we talk about what happened 5 years ago. And maybe we figure out if there's anything left worth saving." His expression cracked open, hope and pain mixed. "I would like that." They spent the rest of Sunday preparing. Wade paid off Samuel's debt with a bank draft. The money handed over in front of witnesses, so Chase could not claim it was never received. Lenora and Samuel went through the ranch records again, building a timeline of their father's purchase, Pike's claim, and every transaction in between. By evening, they had a case file thick enough to present to the judge. It was not perfect, but it was real. Monday morning, they rode into town together, all three of them, and filed the injunction at the courthouse. The judge, an old man named Hastings who had known Joseph Bennett, agreed to hear the case that afternoon. Word spread fast. By noon, the courthouse was packed. Chase showed up with his lawyer, confident and cold. But when the hearing started, and Lenora presented the evidence, the forged seal, the wrong judge, the witness testimony, Chase's confidence started to crack. His lawyer tried to deflect, but Hastings was no fool. He had been a judge for 30 years, and he knew a con when he saw one. At the end of the hearing, Hastings banged his gavel. "The deed presented by Mr. Chase is rejected, pending a full investigation into its authenticity. The injunction is granted. Bluebird Ranch remains under the control of the Bennett family until such time as legitimate title can be established." Chase stood, furious. "Your Honor, this is outrageous." Hastings cut him off. "Mr. Chase, you are lucky I am not charging you with fraud. Get out of my courtroom." Chase walked out, his men following, and the room erupted in cheers. Lenora felt tears sting her eyes. They had done it. They had actually done it. Samuel grabbed her in a fierce hug. Wade stood back, smiling. And when she looked at him over her brother's shoulder, the expression on his face made her heart ache. Because it was not triumph. It was relief. And under that, it was love. Raw and unguarded. The same love she had seen 5 years ago before he vanished. They walked out into the bright afternoon, the town buzzing with talk. Chase was ruined, his reputation shattered. He would leave Bitter Mesa and take his schemes somewhere else, and the valley would be safe, at least for now. Samuel shook Wade's hand. "I do not know how to thank you." Wade smiled. "Just take care of your sister." Samuel glanced between them, then nodded slowly. "I think she might have other ideas about who is taking care of who." He walked off, leaving Lenora and Wade standing alone on the courthouse steps. The silence stretched. Then Wade said, "For what it is worth, I am sorry. For leaving. For not being brave enough to stay." She looked at him. "Why did you leave?" He sighed. "Cold feet does not even cover it. I was 26 and terrified. Terrified of failing you. Terrified of being trapped. Terrified of turning into my father, drunk and mean and dragging everyone down with him. So I ran. And I have regretted it every day since." She felt the old wound ache. "You could have told me." He nodded. I should have. But I was a coward. And by the time I realized what I had thrown away, it was too late. You had built a life without me, and I figured you were better off. She shook her head. I was not better off, Wade. I was just alone. He stepped closer. Are you still? She met his eyes. I do not know. 5 years is a long time. People change. He smiled, sad and hopeful. I know. But I am hoping some things stay the same. Like the way you look at me when you think I am not watching. Or the way you trusted me even when you had every reason not to. Lenora, I am not asking you to forgive me. I am just asking for a chance to prove I am not that scared kid anymore. She thought about the last week. About him bleeding in her barn, risking arrest to help her, offering her everything he had. About the way he had stood beside her when the whole world felt like it was falling apart. Maybe he had changed. Or maybe he had just finally become the man he was always supposed to be. She reached out, took his hand. One chance, she said. Do not waste it. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I will not. They stood there for a long moment, the town moving around them, the future uncertain but finally possible. Then she stepped back, smiled, and said, Now let us go home. We have a ranch to rebuild. They rode back to Bluebird together. The valley spread out golden and green under the late sun. Samuel was waiting on the porch with Clara and the children, and for the first time in months, he looked like himself again. They all sat down to dinner, crowded around the old kitchen table, and talked about what came next. Fixing fences, hiring hands, getting through the winter. It was hard work ahead, but it was work they would do together. And that made all the difference. Over the next few weeks, things settled. Chase left town without a word. His schemes exposed, his power broken. The judge's investigation confirmed the deed was a forgery, and the county clerk was replaced after evidence came out that he had been paid to block Lenora's request. Samuel stopped drinking, threw himself into the ranch work, and slowly started to rebuild his confidence. And Wade stayed. He took a job as foreman, worked the cattle, mended fences, and proved every day that he was not going anywhere. Lenora watched him from the porch one evening as he worked in the corral, breaking a stubborn horse with patience and skill, and felt something in her chest finally unclench. She had spent 5 years armored and alone, convinced that needing someone was the same as weakness. But standing there, watching Wade laugh as the horse finally calmed, she realized she had been wrong. Strength was not doing everything alone. Strength was letting someone stand beside you when the world tried to tear you down. He came up to the porch at dusk, dusty and tired, and sat beside her. Long day. She nodded. Good day, though. He smiled. Best I have had in years. She leaned against him just a little, and he put his arm around her shoulders. They sat in silence, watching the sun sink behind the hills, the sky turning shades of gold and rose. Then Wade said, Lenora, I know it is early. I know we are still figuring this out. But I need you to know I am not leaving again. Whatever comes, I am here. She turned to look at him. Even when it is hard, even when I am impossible, he grinned, especially then. She kissed him, slow and sweet, and felt the last of the walls come down. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her head on his shoulder. "We are going to be all right," she said. He kissed the top of her head. "Yes, we are." Months passed. Winter came and went, hard and cold, but survivable. The ranch held. Samuel and Clara welcomed a new baby in the spring, and the whole valley seemed to breathe easier without Chase's shadow over it. Lenora kept her practice, riding into town 3 days a week to see patients, and spent the rest of her time at the ranch, working beside Wade and Samuel to build something solid. And slowly, quietly, she and Wade built something too. Trust, first. Then partnership. Then love, deeper and more honest than anything they had felt at 23. One evening in late spring, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set, Wade pulled a small box from his pocket. Lenora looked at it, then at him. "Wade." He opened it, showing a simple silver ring. "I know I did this wrong the first time. Ran when I should have stayed. Left you standing alone when I should have been beside you. But I am asking now, the right way. Will you marry me? Not someday. Not when things are perfect. But now, messy and real and together." She looked at the ring, then at his face, and saw everything she needed to see. "Yes," she said. Wade blinked. "Yes." She laughed, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, you stubborn fool. I will marry you." He slipped the ring on her finger, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her like they had all the time in the world. Because they did. They had survived betrayal and bullets, fraud and fear, and come out the other side stronger for it. The ranch was theirs. The valley was safe. And they had each other, finally, completely, with no more secrets and no more running. When they pulled apart, Samuel came out onto the porch with Clara and the baby, grinning. About time. Clara hugged Lenora, laughing and crying. "We are having a wedding. A real one this time." Lenora looked at Wade, at her family, at the land stretching out under the fading light. "Yes," she said. "A real one. And this time, no one is leaving." The wedding happened 2 weeks later, a simple ceremony in the same church where she had stood up to Chase. The whole town came, filling the pews, cheering when the pastor pronounced them husband and wife. Lenora wore a dress Clara had sewn, pale blue with lace at the collar, and Wade wore his best coat and a nervous smile. When they kissed, the room erupted in applause, and when they walked out into the sunlight, hand in hand, Lenora felt something she had not felt in 5 years. Peace. They rode back to Bluebird together, a procession of wagons and horses, and celebrated late into the night with food and music and laughter. Samuel gave a toast, his voice thick with emotion, thanking Wade for coming back and Lenora for never giving up. Wade thanked Samuel for trusting him, thanked the town for standing with them, and thanked Lenora for giving him a second chance he did not deserve. And Lenora stood and said simply, "We fought for this. All of us. And we won. Here is to whatever comes next." They danced under the stars, the valley quiet around them, the future wide open. And when the guests finally left and the house went silent, Wade and Lenora walked out to the barn where it had all started. He leaned against the hay bale where she had found him bleeding, and she stood in the doorway where she had almost turned away. "Hard to believe it has only been a few months," she said. Wade smiled. "Feels like a lifetime." She crossed to him, took his hands. It was, We lived a whole lifetime in those months. Died and came back and became something new. He pulled her close. What are we now? She thought about it. About the woman she had been and the woman she was becoming. About the walls she had built and the doors she had finally opened. We are partners, she said, in everything. He kissed her forehead. I can live with that. She smiled. Good. Because you are stuck with me now. He laughed. Best thing that ever happened to me. They walked back to the house together, past the corral where the horses dozed, past the fields where the crops were starting to grow, past the fence line that marked the edge of Bluebird and the beginning of everything else. The ranch was quiet. The stars were bright. And for the first time in a long time, Lenora felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not alone, not armored, just loved, and loving back, and building something real with the man who had broken her heart and then helped her put it back together. It was not perfect. There would be hard days ahead, drought and debt, and 100 small disasters. But they would face it together, and that made all the difference. She looked up at Wade as they reached the porch. Thank you for coming back, for staying, for fighting. He squeezed her hand. Thank you for letting me. They went inside, into the warm lamplight, into the life they had fought for and won, and closed the door behind them. The valley settled into night. The wind moved through the grass, and Bluebird Ranch stood strong, a place built on love and second chances, and the stubborn refusal to give up. It was not the end of their story, but it was a good beginning.